Coach McMichaels. Yeah, I'm here talking to you. Fundamentals, you gotta focus on those. It is very important considering participation. But getting to know yourself as you're going in, and then you realize, education-wise, you're called out of this muck and this mire from this primordial, formless section of being, and now you have where these complex conversations are happening, and then you get reservations, and then you want to go hold out on something to go say, I'm gonna go say something else again with this later. And you have different organelles and structures that have developed in the body, and it's the thing now where it's maybe your Golgi, it's your pack, your Golgi apparatus, and your cells and things like that, which would control stretching for your muscles and things like that. As you stimulate them, it says, oh, I'll let go of that when that one says it's going to do that after a certain point. We talked about kinetic chains and potential chains in the last episode, or more so the kinetic ones as you're moving. But your awareness and tuning into your awareness as you're going through and completing your activities over and over again is what you would like to watch out for more of. You have to prime yourself to be consistent as far as the culture is concerned. You want a consistent result. These Hershey's Kisses, I'm sorry, these are so good. It was this one. Right? But in sports and development, things like that, as you're going in to complete these activities and participate, to go be a presence at these venues, you have to remember when you're taking this time out to go compete and complete the activity, that you have to pay attention to all the micro portions and steps. It's a very strenuous activity, but if you want to really think about it, eventually either you're not paying attention to it and you let things go and run for themselves because for whatever reason that somebody with sound fundamentals has a better standing infrastructure, let's say, and their foundation is pretty solid as far as going through and having being able to complete an activity over the long term. And then intentionally going into pay attention to your fundamentals of I'm running this way now, my arms are pumping, make sure I have my elbows in at a correct angle while I'm running because it's the most aerodynamic for somebody with my frame. I'm picking my legs up to go move like this. I'm not really paying attention to other people as I'm trying to force this culture to happen because it doesn't want to be organic, because I haven't really had the area or locale change, right? I don't know. It'd be part of your fundamentals and things like that you would have to consider is how do I promote change and then make sure it's something that's lasting and effective. Personally, a lot of the activities and things like that we complete, going into them to begin with, the stimulation and the feedback loops and things like that you fall into, that you end up developing and manifesting in. It's you're a product of your environment, and you get that there's the cue of now I'm going in to start the activity, to complete the activity, to move through my progression of I'm doing the activity, and it's not always, hey, this is the best that to go have that. Right? I'm not always expecting you to go do the same thing if I'm not paying the closest amount of attention to it. But having a solid foundation for fundamentals, it's a good way to keep basically your clock dialed in for your personal self and your personal well-being. like, and even how you like integrate, like interface with like your wider environment and like your community as everything comes together. Right, so what you would like to consider, let's look at personal, or talk briefly on personal versus like macro. So for like your kinetic chains as you're moving through, we're pushing this ball across this field, or this massive stone, and rolling it across this field. I don't necessarily run into the ball at full speed and just start, because I know for a fact while I'm pushing it at some point, this is where your fundamentals essentially will come from. Is you get in, you try the activity, you like it, that's what it does, right? And you realize, okay, maybe my legs could be a little bit stronger to go give me a push to go get that. Maybe my core could be a little more stout to like support my demand for oxygen and like the output as I exchange a like property of light or a plasma for like a kinetic like energy exchange or something like that, right? You would like work on the individual components of the chain and then have it where you could take the chain now and run it, not necessarily in the back of your mind. You need to develop it where it's like a loop. Essentially, it's a feedback loop that you fall into. Like, it's because of your culture, like you establish that self and that. There's two different things, and that does that, so I'm doing this now. And then you kind of fall in this conversation of, now I'm stuck here, and you're like a receptor for this one to go do that, and that one's doing this, that now. And then I'm expecting you to just go and do this over and over again, and then this one over here is doing what now? But it's there for you, it's happy, it's right, it's doing that, it's supposed to be doing that, it's nice. Complex events, kind of hard to get in tune to, but then again, you have to remember performance and then grading. If it's just more of a recreational setting, I wouldn't push yourself too hard. Maybe get yourself some kind of fundamental set where it's more generalized and like spaced out, where you can go through your progressions of, I'm going to focus on the takeoff as I'm approaching this rock to go push it. Right, so I'm going to go do this rep 100 times and get a higher potential score through strength training, and then transfer the potentials into kinetics as I actually go in and touch the rock. And then I'm going to work on positioning myself on using leverage. So I'm going to work on, maybe you say lifting weights or something that is lever-like, so I get used to the fulcrum and like manipulating angular momentum going into it, so you have like intellect and things like that associated with it. And then you also get, as far as your being is concerned, where you have proteins and enzymes that develop that are usually like the mitigator for how you interact with your environment, as it's like the different aspects and levels of being, how you can like all your receptors and things like that, how you're interacting with it is like how the structure of your proteins and things like that form as you're telling yourself how to feel and be about doing certain things. Right, and getting back into like your cycle of, I'm comfortable being here, this is an acceptable chain. Right, so it's like your statements and your affirmations are your fundamental core for completing an activity. It's like you're surrounding yourself with your culture coming into the activity, which is like highly important for like maintenance. So like watching somebody else compete in a sport that doesn't have a really good foundation for support, or their demand for their being is like somewhere else for somebody else, so they don't want to necessarily, over time you're going to watch it basically just go and fall into the spot where the demand isn't. And then you have where somebody is like really good at promoting, like, hey, I'm going to go do this, everybody come watch me. And so they'll go run out and like watch them do that. And as they're going through their progressions, you notice that like it's kind of like a contagious air about them. Like one of the aspects of their being is associated with like recruitment and like cultivating the interest in like self, whether it be in a form or completing an activity. But fundamentals are like essential in the realm of sporting and competitive gameplay. Essentially is like, how do you develop the, just in like its basis essence, like the essence of change, like to develop and want to go develop? How do you accrue interest in something like that? Like where you would like stay in a state of, I'm going to keep like changing, essentially, so I could always meet the challenge that I have to face at some point. And then there's the complexity of the issue that you would have to go deal with too. So, you know, you have different challenges, and something that helps, as we usually do a lot as like a species, like you approach your situation from different angles. Like you look at, this one does that, that does that. I might do that with you too, right? Just so I can know what you're doing with it and be easy to the point. It's usually the only thing that has to happen. It's just who's getting to the point first. That's pretty much it. And then like you just build you center your core and your chains around, now I'm going to go get to the point, and that's just that. And then you have, at least where it's reliable and dependable, you have your culture and your chain coming in around you now consistently as you're going to go do that. So I'm expecting you to have something up for me to go do that. And then your interest is associated and attributed at some point as somebody else is watching you compete. You might have like a competitor or something that's interested in your activity at some point, where they'd be watching you and trying to like overcome where you're going for your change. But you know, after a certain point, because of the statements of being and what we've discussed and what you know at this point, as far as like the education system. So you have like this core subjects that we teach people of like how things develop, and then you get into like your specializations, and then your like independent studies and practices. And then for me personally, we look into like astrophysics. We studied quantum dynamics. You've done like computer coding, which is like helping with timing of sequences and events. And then you have like your actual like your independent, like free, unfiltered space between like your actual substrates and areas of where you've like said that you'd like to have something happen, right? And then those would be more of like your like mechanical components in your chain. So like fundamental wise, that's why you do this. You have that thing sit there. You know, when I go by this and it says that, that's just going to get you that, no matter what it does. That's always that. And then you move from this one to where you would be completing the activity, right? And then as it's moving, you might have that where it's like variable as far as the chain is concerned, and how like interest in it is expressed from like the output or the outcome. But yeah, we want you to focus a lot on basically like the micro, the baby steps of what you're doing. So maybe try thinking about, is this an activity I want to complete in like the long term, or is this just something that I need like moment to moment? And then you could figure out from there where to go, where it's whether it be for developing something that's more permanent, or just change score where it's a byproduct of your mechanical chains working, right? So like pushing this rock, I got off of the leverage portions, and now I'm going in to go actually look at it, and then we have to figure out how far I need to push this to have all this potential energy stored up, and then I know that I could expend, right? So I'm not gonna give myself the daunting task of trying to, I don't know, inappropriately touch it, like approach the rock where I'm gonna like just run into it. Maybe like take a step into it and then like use my foundation for support for like doing squats or like lunges, or maybe a power clean where I could lift a rock and then keep it moving at a slow pace where I'm going to see and get results for it as I'm going into it, as it moves from one playing to the face as I'm rolling it, as I see now that goes to that. So I'm gonna lend myself towards falling into it and develop that there's a culture for me sitting in this thing, and then I have the control of going and pushing this thing forward. And as it moves, it stimulates and feeds my being to further push this thing into the next one, where it's more of a sustainable, like a practice, essentially, right?